Welcome, friends, to another Wolff Responds. I'd like to speak with you today about the United States-China trade war. You might call what I'm about to tell you as winners and likely losers in the U.S.-China trade war. Why do I say winners and losers? Because there are some fundamental differences between the United States and China, which you probably know, but that those have enormous meaning and implications for who's going to win and who's going to lose from the trade war that is now underway. Why do I call it a trade war? Because the United States took the initiative of raising tariffs against China far higher than they did against anyone else, far higher each step than the Chinese themselves, who retaliated, so that by now the level of tariffs, which is a tax on imports into the United States from China, that level is so high that practically nothing made in China is coming here as long as those tariffs remain. We even hear right now of ships in the ocean coming from China, stacked high with containers of goods to be sold in America, that are stopped on the high seas, turned around, and go back to China to wait and see what's going to happen. And the same is true because the Chinese retaliated, raised their tariffs, not as far as the United States, but almost. Not as soon as the United States, but pretty quick afterwards. So by now, very little from the U.S. can go into China, and very little from China can come here. Winners and losers will be those on the two sides, the better able to handle this situation. Now, you might imagine, and some U.S. officials have said, the U.S. will win because, after all, we're a more important market for the Chinese than the Chinese economy is for American producers. And that's quite true. China needs the U.S. market more than the United States needs the China market. If that were the only determinant of who wins and loses, we could say the United States in pretty good shape to come out less damaged than the Chinese. But that would be a big fat mistake. Why? Because the issue isn't U.S. and China alone. The real issue is, can China find other places to sell what it used to sell to the United States before the trade war? Can China buy from other countries what it used to buy from the United States? Those are the questions. Same questions for the United States. Can we get from other countries what we used to get from China? Can we sell elsewhere what we used to sell in China? And there, I'm afraid, the advantage goes overwhelmingly to China, not the United States. China is in a better position to win this trade war than the United States is, and that's the reality. Let me explain. China has an advantage over the United States in two ways. The first one is China is at the peak of its program of many years to build strong alliances around the world. The name of the major alliance, China has actually quite a few of them, but the major one is called the BRICS, B-R-I-C-S. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. That was the original 5. And they've now added another 15 to 20 more. Together, these countries of the BRICS comprise more than half of the population of this planet Earth. By comparison, the United States, the population here, 330 million, is about 4.5%. So let's be clear. The US is 4.5% of the world's people, and China and the BRICS alliance, a very solid alliance these days, comprises more than half the people on the planet. Wow, that's a lot better situation. But it's worse than that. The American alliance with its partners, the chief among which are called the G7, Canada, Japan, Britain, France, Italy, and Germany alongside the US, that alliance is in worse shape than it has been in the last 75 years. The Canadians just had an election a couple of days ago in which the winner came from behind because he took the strongest position against the United States, against the Trump regime, saying we will never be the 51st state of the United States. The U.S. alliance with Canada has never been poorer than it is today. The same applies to Mexico, and the same applies to the rest of Europe. And what about Japan? A couple of weeks ago, Japan did something it has not done before, telling the United States, we may not lend you any more money. Your government is too deep in debt. Why is that important? Because Japan is the largest creditor of the United States. The United States is the world's biggest debtor country. We owe more than any other country. And the biggest lender to us, Japan, is now telling us we're not so happy with you. And just so you know, the number 2 lender to the United States is the People's Republic of China. And they're not going to help us if we're in the middle of a trade war. So the alliance that Chinese have built is stronger for them to solve the problem of a trade war with the United States than the alliances the United States has are not going to be helping them anywhere near the same way. But I told you there were 2 reasons. And here comes the number 1. China's economy is different from the American in this way. In the United States, the majority of enterprises, workplaces, factories, offices, stores are privately owned, privately operated as private enterprises. That is not the case in China. China is a hybrid. About 50% of China's economy, her enterprises, are likewise privately owned and operated by Chinese employers, private employers, and by foreign, including many American private employers who have big operations in China, like Apple, like Tesla, like General Motors, and on and on and on. But the other half of China, and we have nothing like that in the United States, are government-owned and operated enterprises. And sitting on top of this hybrid is a powerful government, which in turn, above it, sits a very powerful Chinese Communist Party. Why do I say this? Because this organization of the Chinese, a government that is able to supervise, to manage, and to coordinate a hybrid economy, has shown itself, here we go now, to be better able to mobilize the resources, the people, the raw materials, the transportation system, the banking system. When you have it organized the way they do, they can mobilize their resources to achieve their objectives. Basically, they do it this way. If the private sector can do something, let it. If they can't, because it isn't profitable, if they don't want to take the risk, if they don't have what's necessary, the government steps in and does it. That's why half of what gets produced is produced in and by the government. They fill in the blanks. In the United States, it doesn't work like that. Everything is left up to private profit. If it's profitable, people do it. Why do we have unemployment? Because it's not profitable to hire those people, so we don't. Why do we not have a very good fast train system? Not profitable, so we don't have it. Other countries have it. China has the best system of rapid railroads in the world. Why? Because the government did it. That's the problem. For the last 30 years, the Chinese economy has grown 2 to 3 times faster than the US. That's a fact. No way around it. And that's not because the Chinese work harder, and it's not because they're more disciplined. Those are stories. The reality is they have a coordinated economic system. They are not held back by an ideology, because that's all it is, that the private is good and the government is bad. Look at Mr. Musk firing people left and right. The government is inefficient. We're going to give it to the private sector. You know why the government does the few things it does in this country? Because the private sector didn't work it out real well. The private sector made a mess of it, and the government came in to fix it. But because we have the ideology that the government shouldn't be doing things, we keep the government small. That's what Mr. Musk is doing. But the irony is, when we do that, in a trade war with China, who has a powerful government stepping in, coordinating, and making it all work in the way that they want it to, we are shooting ourselves in the foot here in the United States. Our difference from what the Chinese have done is a losing proposition. And what it suggests is, in China, given their solid alliances and a powerful government, they are in much better shape to redirect their economy, to compensate for the trade war with the United States. They're in a better position to manage that than we are here at our end. That's why Xi Jinping, the Chinese leader, is as aggressively powerful in what he says. We will make it. We don't need the United States. Quite a show for the rest of the world, who would hate to be in a trade war with the United States, but for good reason. They don't have the last 30 to 40 years to show what their economic system is capable of. If they were, they'd show the same self-confidence that you get from the Chinese. There's a lesson here. We are paying a heavy price for an economic system that celebrates private enterprise over the kind of coordination and economic growth that the Chinese alternative system has been able to achieve. And that's why in this trade war, China looks to be the better position to win than the United States. And my hope personally is that people in this country will understand it and sit down and work out a live and let live relationship with China, rather than talking about wars of one kind or another. If interventions like this strike you as useful, please share them with your friends, your co-workers, people who might be interested. That's why we make them. And of course, if you can help defray the cost of producing and distributing these videos, that would be a second way to help this kind of intervention get the attention I hope you agree it deserves. Thank you.